Hello guys, Problematic Boy here with a bit of a PoE video here. My last video was the last Epoch video, but we are gearing up and well, not gearing up quite in last Epoch, but gearing up for gearing up for the new league, new Path of Exile league. They dropped the Balance manifesto. And so what I wanted to do was just go over the Balance manifesto. Let's get Wowhead out of here. Uh, and just go through it, look at it, give my impressions. I already did read it. I'm just going to go sort of quickly over what the issues are. I feel like it's a very strange manifesto. I like to preface it by saying these are first impressions. Well, second impressions. They're my thoughts. Uh, it's not first impressions. These are my thoughts on the manifesto, what I think is important. And also that we don't have the patch notes and we don't have the announcement yet. So we don't know what they're actually doing in terms of, recombinators were really strong. Those are gone, but, it's a new league. There might be something else that gives us a lot of player power. And the patch notes could give us details on more buffs or more of a meta shakeup. But I'm just going to be giving my opinions based off the information that we have right now. And just that information. So first off with defenses, this is very weird to me. A lot of this stuff is very weird to me. So they're nerfing chance to suppress on dexterity, body armor, shields, helmets, boots, gloves, and basically pretty much everywhere, and buffing some of the passives. Now I actually will say that I agree with doing the passive switch. The dexterity armor thing, I'm guessing that they are just blanket nerfing pure dexterity armors, the evasion, pure evasion armors, armor evasion armors, armor evasion types, and evasion energy shield types, which is very weird to me. I think if you were going to target a spell suppression nerf, you would definitely want to target the armor evasion type bases. So things like the dragon scale doublet, the worm scale, or whatever you want to call it, full dragon scale. Those types of bases are definitely the ones that are in need of a nerf, definitely, because they're way overrepresented, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, nerfing the pure evasion armors, I feel like those ones should be giving a substantial amount of spell suppression. If you're using a pure evasion armor, which I don't know why you would, because there's not a reason to right now, a reason to use it might be that it's a lot easier to cap. Right now, they're easier to craft on them, so that is kind of the case already, but it'd be nice to see some of the old values, the old high values retained on the pure evasion. And evasion energy shield also doesn't get a lot of use, those types of armors. They're just not as strong, so to see them nerfed as well just kind of makes them now the weakest option, because you still have armor evasion bases giving armor, and the pure evasion bases are easier to roll the spell suppression on. So now evasion energy shield is kind of ugh. It's kind of especially with grav mod being changed to no longer give life as max energy shield. It's like, well, if I'm gonna put grav mod, it's just worse, right? It's worse. So that's the defense stuff. The Flesh and Stone change doesn't matter. The Arctic Armor change doesn't matter. The Defiance Banner change is just a nerf to Defiance Banner. These, the general tone of this is that it seems like they're just nerfing things. It's a general nerf to player power. Um, Without much minion stuff, I don't really care about. There's people way more qualified to talk about minion stuff. Uh, they're saying that Fire Trap, this is another weird thing. This is like a pause for me. Is that they're saying that Fire Trap's damage over time was unintentionally buffed. Which makes no sense to me. How do you unintentionally buff something by like 1000 damage per second and then have it be one of like the smoothest, best feeling skills in the game? Like, I just don't know like how that's an unintentional thing. Like, oh, we buffed the hit damage and we accidentally buffed the damage over time by an incredibly large amount. I mean, it's in the patch notes. You can go back, you can see that it seems that they buffed both. So I don't know why they're saying it's unintentional. They could just say, "Hey, we think it's too strong and we want to reduce its power," which is fine. They're in their full right to do that. But they're saying this unintentional thing. I just don't. Bel- it is GGG. I do believe them when they say it's unintentional. It's just very odd to me. It's just very strange. So there's the thing about cooldown traps, explosive arrow, stuff, divine blessing. You can no longer life tap divine blessing, which was that really brought a lot of builds together by giving them damage that they really needed. Like there's some builds where you would be divine blessing a life tapping a damage aura, and you pretty much need that aura uptime during the later red maps to be clearing them if your build was shit. And I play a lot of shit builds, so now that you can't do that anymore, it's sort of like, well, that's kind of a hit the build variety. I mean, this what it seems like to me from not having complete information of the future stuff is that this is kind of a you're reducing power overall, like in a lot of general ways, especially with the aura stuff, which we'll get to. But I mean, we'll get to it really soon since I skipped a lot of the other stuff. But it's like you're nerfing pretty much every build, so the builds that were the few builds that were good are just a little bit worse, and they're probably still going to be good. And the builds that were just barely good enough or just barely not good enough are now going to be worse. So I don't really know what's going on there. Uh, so there's a very minuscule buff to Tao is chosen. They're doing something with Trickster that we don't know yet. They moved Unbreakable. Omniscience is fine. They just did a little thing here. Melding is probably still fine. If you think about melding, I guess with full investment and the right ruled melding, you're still getting to 90%. But even before, when you were getting to 90%, that's now 85%. That's still worth it. That's still very worth it to get 85% max res, or even 83% max res is a huge defense boost. So I still think it's a very powerful item. Um, Brittle needed a nerf anyway. I don't really care about that. Here's the mana reservation stuff, which I said we were going to get to, and then we got to like 1 minute later. The mana reservation stuff is interesting. I wonder what the context of this change is, because it is true on one hand that every build is trying to stack defensive auras. I mean, that's what they're trying to do, and that getting rid of 15% mana reservation efficiency makes that more difficult to do. And it makes it's just a reduction in defense is what this seems like to me. It's just a general reduction in player defense, which is strange to me because even with the level of defense that we had before and the previous two patches, you would still die. Obviously, if you're playing, I mean, hardcore players are dying, but it's just from a softcore perspective or a softcore SSF perspective, you would build, your Grace, Determination, Defiance banner. You'd still die. Like you would still die. So now that the defenses are being reduced, I guess you're just gonna die more. Doesn't seem like there's anything to replace what's going on there. Do they want people to run damage Rs? Maybe they want people to say that they don't care and this might be a move in the right direction. This might force people into saying, well, I don't want to run this defensive aura, I'm going to run a damage aura instead, and then they do more damage and then they just die even more. But maybe just dying even more is what they want the game to be, and they want hardcore to be a space where you design your character to never ever die, and they want softcore to be a space where your character dies a number of times. That's maybe just what they want. That's maybe their game design thing. I don't see how this accomplishes that quite yet. Uh, Obviously, hardcore is always going to be a space where you're trying to design a character or build a character that is not ever going to die ever. Sometimes that doesn't work, but in softcore, that's just not the space, right? You're building a character that one has enough damage to kill things in a speed that is comfortable for you as a player, which can be different depending on the player. And everybody has a different death comfort level. I mean, that's why some people play hardcore, because they don't like dying ever. If you don't like dying, you're gonna play hardcore. The people who don't like dying the most play hardcore, and then the people who don't care very much if they die a few times will play softcore. And if you and it's a very difficult balance to strike. And I don't envy their position here. I don't know what I would personally do. Probably just, I don't know. I'm interested to hear what you guys think, because I don't have anything that I particularly do. I mean, so much of the game is preemptive, right? You're building a character, and then it's like you're taking it into the maps to test it, right? A lot of the damage you can't really react to, so you need to have those defenses already in place. If damage was more reactive, then you could drop a defensive aura and put in a damage aura, and then because most of the damage then would be coming from things. It reminds me, in playing a lot of Last Epoch, right? There's certain enemies that you have, and I'm not saying PoE should be like Last Epoch, because they're complete different games. But in Last Epoch, so much of the damage that's coming in is reactive. It's not something that, like, you still have the resistances you want to cap and armor that you want to get high to as high values you can, and dodge rating and stuff like that. But the real bulk of it is there's AoE on the ground. This mob that is a specific type of mob, either has a high damaging attack because you've taken the attack before a node does a lot of damage, or it makes a ground AoE that you see there's a marker on the ground, and standing in that marker does a shit ton of damage to you, even if your resistances are capped. So the majority of the damage coming to you in Last Epoch is damage that you can see about to happen to you, and you can move your character out of it, or it's a telegraphed attack from a specific mob that to identify the mob because it looks a certain way, and you can do that. Except there's a few cases in Last Epoch where that's not true, notably Scalebane Bodyguard, who just teleport stun to you, see you later, kid, you're dead. But most cases, 99% of the cases in Last Epoch are, okay, boss is doing a telegraph, or enemy in the echo or map is doing a telegraph, you can see it and do that. PoE is just not like that. It's just not that type of game, so with the damage not being reactive, it's all preemptive. You want to have all those preemptive things are so much more important in PoE than they are in Last Epoch. It's just, I don't know what to do. The solution is, of course, not to make PoE like another game. If PoE still has to be PoE, but PoE needs to be able to solve this problem another way. Because if PoE stays the exact same damage numbers, and we don't have any other way to get defense, then reducing the ways of stacking preemptive defense, which is what this aura reservation change does, just means people are going to die more, and there's nothing they can do about it. That's really what it means, is that you're going to die more, and there's nothing you can do about it, because while PoE does have some reactive stuff, magma barrier, for instance, or I'm not sure what else. There's magma barrier. There's stuff on the ground, damage over time effects that you're not supposed to stand in. But there are some reactive things that it's like, okay, that's bad. Don't. Obviously, you're in control of whether you do that. But when you're going so fast and all these other things, and you're getting hit, it's like, well, you better hope you have like 50% evasion and lots of armor. So that's just my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I will be, getting ready. Expect a pause on channel content until more PoE news is out. We'll be reacting to the announcement, and we will have, big league launch stream and all that stuff. So thanks for watching. It's been Problematic Boy. Bye-bye.